just want to do a quick video tutorial on how to make a 2-color layered vinyl glass cutting board. If you notice this particular cutting board, the vinyl is on the back, so the top is completely smooth, so it's actually usable when you're cutting on it or put a hot plate on it. The vinyl's never gonna actually touch your food and you're never gonna cut into it. Here's a quick view what the back of it looks like. And there's the front again. The one that I'm making today will be very similar to this one, and I'll show you how we're gonna do it. The actual cutting board was purchased at Bed Bath & Beyond. They sell them there for $7.99, and they are a 12 by 15 size. They do have a larger size cutting board, but the 12 by 15 is usually what I always get. The vinyl that I'm going to use on it is Oracle 651. The first step that you're going to always do for your cutting board is make sure you clean it well with Windex. Get any debris or anything off, because whenever you're doing a cutting board, you actually apply the vinyl to the back of the cutting board. So if there's anything in between the vinyl that you apply and the actual glass, you'll see it when you turn the cutting board over and look at it from the front. So make sure you get that nice and clean and let it dry completely before you apply your vinyl to it. This cutting board in particular has 2 pieces. This is the name with the family established date, and then this is the large initial that's going to go behind the name. If you notice that they are already cut out, I cut these out on my cutter earlier, went ahead and weeded them and applied transfer tape on top. And the words are backwards because whenever you're doing a glass cutting board, or anything that you're going to want to apply on the back side, you're going to always want to mirror your image so that once you apply it and turn the cutting board over, it'll look correct. Okay? So for this one, because whenever it's finished, you're going to have the name and the initial over it. So the first thing you need to apply is the actual name onto the back of the cutting board, so that when you turn your cutting board over, the name will be on top of the initial. My favorite thing to use as far as lining up is this is a Fisker's cutting board that I got from Joann's Fabrics in the sewing section. And then this ruler. And then the reason why I use clear transfer tape, for projects like this, you can't beat it, especially when you're layering vinyl, because you can actually see it. I can see the lines through the cutting board and see the vinyl easily. Okay, so first thing what we're going to do is we're going to kind of guesstimate where this is going to go. Okay, and then once you get a good idea of where you think it's going to be, you can stick that down. If you notice, whenever I put transfer tape on my vinyl for cutting boards, I always leave extra on the top and bottom so that I don't have to use a separate piece of tape for a hinge, and I can just lift it up and replace it. It just makes things go a little faster. If you don't like to do that, you can put a masking tape hinge and do it that way. Okay, and then what I do is make sure my cutting board is lined up with my Fisker's mat grid, and then I use this to layer over it and just kind of see if it's lined up. The bottom of the letters are the straightest part of this design, so that's what I'm going to use to actually see if it's lined up. And then I'm also going to measure on the end of each side to make sure it is in the middle. And this usually is the part that takes the longest, just because you want to make sure it's in the right place before you actually apply it to your cutting board. My end was a little high and it was a little to the right. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, once I have that where I want it to be, I can go ahead and go with my squeegee and just make sure the hinge is on there nice and secure. As far as sizing, like to get a good size for your cutting board, I always cut my names, like if you're going to do a design like this, I always cut my names exactly 11 inches this way, which is great because if you have a smaller cutter, or not a commercial cutter, if you have the Silhouette Cameo or a Cricut, you can cut up to 12 inches. So this is kind of a vinyl saver too. Do 11 inches and it works perfect for these 15 by 12 inch cutting boards. So once we have that, just make sure it's all on there. Okay, remove your backing. It's always good to remove your backing away from your decal rather than your decal away from the backing. Because if you do it the other way, your decal tends to want to stay on the backing. Okay, and then for this part, I always like to check and make sure I don't have any loose dust or anything that fell on there. Okay, and then you're just going to slowly apply this down to your cutting board. If you notice, you leave this loose, not a lot of tension, so that you don't get creases in your vinyl. Okay. Okay, once that's all down, you can go ahead and remove your transfer tape. Again, don't just pull straight up. A lot of times the vinyl will want to come with it. The closer you can get to the surface when you're pulling it off, the better. And then that way you can go a little slower and notice if anything tries to come up with your transfer tape. Okay, so we got that. Okay, so our first step is done. You notice we got the name on there, sized right and straight. I always check before I go ahead and put the initial on, because if there was a piece of dust or trash or anything, you don't want to apply your initial on top and then turn it over and see that you have your letter L is messed up or whatever. So if it's like this, you can actually just remove the L and replace it rather than replacing everything. I like to go back with my transfer tape and just put it on and take it off, just so if any dust or anything gets on it, it gets it off before I put the initial on. Okay, now it's time to apply the initial. Initial is a little easier because it's not such straight, rigid lines. You can kind of just eyeball this as far as what looks good, because it's such a curly letter. Sometimes it looks better one way or another rather than just completely straight. So I usually just eyeball it, see what I like, turn it over and look at it. If you gotta hold it up to the light so that you can actually see the initial behind it, that helps too, which I'm happy with where that is. Okay, I'll go ahead and use my extra piece of transfer tape that's on top and make a hinge. Move that out of the way, just check and make sure there's nothing hanging out. And then you're just gonna apply this the same way. Okay, once that's applied, you can go ahead and remove your transfer tape. Okay, go ahead and turn it over, make sure you don't have any mess up parts or any debris in between the vinyl and the cutting board, which we are good. You'll notice that between here, like you see how the vinyl is not actually sticking, it'll look funny until you go back. I use this tool It looks like this on the end. I got it with an old Cricut machine that I do not have anymore. And then you can just go back and trace around the letters just to get the vinyl to fully stick, because it'll make like little crevices between your letters where just air gets caught in it, and you just need to kind of work that out. So like this part that you can really see on the video. Fix that part and show you. Okay. Now if you go back and look right here, it looks the same rather than having this darkness between the letters. I'm not sure if you can see that in the video or not. And then a lot of times whenever you're doing that, you're going to notice that you're going to get some air bubbles trapped. Like, for instance, if vinyl was completely covering this part of the S, that opening, and the air didn't have a way to get out, I just go back and stick it with a needle and the air will come out. A lot of people ask about washing these. I always recommend hand washing for cutting boards just because it'll last the longest. With that being said, the cutting board I showed you in the beginning, I've had that cutting board for about 2 years. I made it about 2 years ago, and I put it in the dishwasher several times. I've only ever put it on the top rack, and it's done fine. But it is my own personal cutting board that I can easily replace whenever I want to. So if you're giving it as a gift or selling them, always recommend hand washing, just so that it'll last the longest as it can. But if they accidentally put it in the dishwasher, odds are they're going to be fine. That's all for now. I'm also going to be doing another video on tumbler cups and a few other things, so go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for watching.